from Next Best Picture podcast, and we are talking with Ron Howard, the director of Eden. Ron, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure to talk to you.
Very excited to talk with you about this film, which I absolutely adored at the Toronto International Film Festival last year, and was shocked to learn while reading the production notes that you've actually been working on this film for over a decade, developing it. I was curious what first got you interested in telling this story.
Well, I came across this story on a family vacation to the Galápagos. And once we learned about this collection of characters, this true crime, outcome, this narrative, we couldn't stop talking about it. And I started doing research. I started imagining if it could be a movie. My daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, said, Dad, I think it's a movie. You should think about this. And I immediately began to think of it that way. But I also thought, well, this is new. This would be difficult territory for me, new territory. I'd be well outside my comfort zone because it's not a celebration. It's a true crime thriller. It's dark. It's edgy. It's tragic in places. There's also humor and nobility and emotion, but it's tough. And slowly but surely, I worked on it, and I began to see audiences lean into a tone that I felt like this movie would occupy, a space that would fit. And I began to think, well, it's not a studio movie, it's not a Hollywood movie, but it's a movie. And I really wanted people to have a single sitting experience. So it's not a TV series where you have to watch it for weeks to kind of get the twists and turns. It just all would tumble out there on the table for the audience the way it did for me when I first learned about the story. And I wanted to share it. And I also knew it would offer actors a really great performance opportunities.
And absolutely on that front. And I mean, and so much has changed in the world as you've been developing this project. We had the social fabric fraying when we were all alone in our little houses during the pandemic. And now the economy is crashing just like it did just before the events that we see in this film. As you were going through the development process and watching what was going on in this world, did the focus of the story shift for you at all, and how?
Well, it didn't shift, but it became all the more relevant. I began to realize this isn't some glance back at some weird people 90 years ago. It suddenly became very modern, very, very, very relatable. And I thought that, only made a more powerful case for making the movie and taking the leap. But ultimately, I needed a strong screenplay, which Noah Pink gave us. Wrote it on spec, by the way. I wouldn't do it unless I knew I could get an ensemble of incredibly charismatic, but moreover courageous and talented people, because these are bigger than life characters, and you have to have guts to take that on. They're supported by the fact that all the research suggests that if anything, we dialed the characters back just a little bit, because these were some pretty wild individuals. But nonetheless, I wanted people who were willing to take that leap. And Jude Law, Armas, Vanessa Kirby, they all stepped up.
Yeah, the performances are incredible, and the chemistry that they all have together is really palpable. And I'm curious because I know that with the strikes and with the timing of shooting and everything, that you went through some cast changes during the months leading up to shooting. And I'm curious, as you recast, how you were concerned about the chemistry of the overall group and how that would be affected by any of these changes and how you solved for that.
Well, the only solution was to just be thorough. And fortunately, from the very beginning, as soon as the script got out there, agents were interested in their actors being a part of this, even though they knew they were not, they're going to be paid a fraction of their normal acting fees, and actors were beginning to read it. One of the before I committed myself, I did just a read through with some actor friends of mine, and they weren't people who were going to be candidates for the part. They were just good, smart actors who are great with story and character. And they just said, "Oh, you've got to do this movie. Actors are going to want to do it." So we always had many people who kind of wanted to play each role. So when there were shifts in schedules and illnesses and other life events that came along that did change things in the ensemble a little bit, which is not that unusual when you're dealing with a large cast, by the way. It was I had a kind of luxury of options, and that was again just a testament to the script, but really these characters. I mean, this is just a unique opportunity, and they were willing to trust me to try to bring it to the screen.
You spent so many years developing this, and then you finally get cast, you get your budget, you get everything happening, and you end up having to shoot it in a relatively condensed time frame, certainly compared to the long development process you have. And you're shooting outdoors, you have all of these things that could potentially go wrong. With the years that you've spent working in film, do these problems that come up with production even phase you anymore?
They always phase me because they're always a threat to the goal, which is to try to maximize the possibilities of the movie, scene to scene, moment to moment. So yeah, it's always upsetting. And yet in this case, even though it pushed us to have to work faster, it as Jude Law said, it kind of informed us. The more uncomfortable we were, the more it was 100 degrees, the more hurried we felt, the more there was a lightning storm that was, threatening to knock out our day of shooting. It just seemed to put a kind of healthy pressure on the project. So this was an indie. Every indie movie faces those kinds of challenges. And yet with live action production, if people are really dedicated, often it does energize things in a palpable way. And because this is a survival story about people navigating a desert island, the most rugged primal type, all that seemed to work in our favor. Matthias Herndl, the cinematographer, and I had chosen a very raw, simple, kind of aggressive camera style that is a way of working very quickly. So when the light was right, that's when we were, accomplishing the most, and the actors were, able to roll with those pressures and do great work.
Yeah, and it comes across, this is, as you said, an adventure survival thriller that is so palpably entertaining, and it does, as you said, speak to the current state of the world and where we're at in ways that are very surprising and entertaining and meaningful, I think. So thank you for your work on the film.
You're welcome. I mean, again, from the first time that we learned of this story as a family, we just kept talking about it. And that's what I find from people who see the movie, is that they always say, "Oh, the next day I was still thinking about it. The next day, me and my friends were talking about it." And so that thrills me, I really hope that that as the movie gets out there, that people have that experience and enjoy it.
I think they will. Again, Ron, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for the film.